Oh, we're live. Sorry for the delays, folks. Our gaming stream ran long. We had to finish that so that we wouldn't have a secondary short stream. But we're here. We're back. And we're going to resume our coding. Oh. Definitely ran a bit long. All right, let's check in with the kitties. We have Ember across the desk, Guy and Sammy on the bed, and Sherbet behind my head. There's a distinct possibility that Mason is still at the foot of the bed right now. There is a folded up blanket there. And hey there, I do see that definitely earlier Mafioso swung through. And then sadly, before we managed to start, again, sorry for the late start. Hey there, Zell, and hey there, Squinnick. We are just getting started with the coding portion of the day. Let's swing on in here. So I looked up again how to do this. Hey there, Dana. And once again, happy birthday, Dana. I looked up how to do this. Last time we were checking on thinky. We were thinking on how to get the avoidance mechanic to happen here. And we were doing it wrong. We won't be doing this in this exact same fashion, but we need to get what we're dealing with. If that is you leaving Mafioso, thanks for swinging through. Sorry that you couldn't, that I had to start late. If you are saying hello in that, if you're saying good evening in the hello fashion, then hello. Okay, so what we want is the distance from the center of the colliding object, the vector from that to the point of impact, and we apply that to our direction, like the direction we're going, to force it to rotate further. And we'll do that each time. So we're going to have our so we get our vectors and we apply our rotation to the raycast. Also going to declare a var. This is a collection of nodes, but I don't know how to present that. So vector 2, the vector 2 dot 0, just to be sure. So we've got that. And we've rotated the raycast. So then, for each raycast, I definitely get that. I can empathize with feeling sleepy there. Okay, so we extend out the raycast. This is going to be adjusted based on the speed of the object. Like how many seconds ahead we want to do that. In this case, we're projecting about a second ahead. Just for testing purposes. We could project a whole frame or a couple of frames. We'll see. So we get the collision point, which is where the raycast runs into it. But let me get that. That's not what we're looking for. Hey there, Minty. Welcome back. We had to scramble into our coding stream / streams. What is this? Returns an int. Oh. All right, Zell. Yeah, we do a gaming stream earlier, and then we proceed into a coding stream, Minty. It's a new pattern I'm trying out. I want to make sure I'm putting sufficient work into my streaming schedule, and currently that does mean expanding the stream portion as I figure out what kind of changes I'm making to the video production side, the short form production side. We'll see if any of this changes. Additionally, I do want to still get gaming in, but I want to give more time to the coding. The coding is definitely fun from a chat perspective and also a intellectual engagement perspective. Okay, we can get the point. Okay. How about get collider? Is an object. I have played Minecraft, but I don't actively play Minecraft currently. Everything's an object. Ugh. I mean, the collider is going to be a thing, but we don't know precisely what the thing is. In our world, it should be a node 2D. Can I cast it accordingly? Will it let me? This is a bad assumption to be making, but object. Is there an is a? Let's try that. Hey there, Scorpion. I think this is the syntax. So if I get a colliding object and it's a 2D object, it's a 2D node. That means it is something that exists in 2D space. And if it's something that exists in 2D space, we have the point of the collision. To collider object position. Okay, so that's where the collider object is. So if we look at that in the collision point, what we can do is get a vector from where the collider is to the point of the collision, which should give us a vector to forcibly turn. To forcibly turn the object we're dealing with. Is that to the collision point. We do adjustment plus equals to collision normalized. Welcome back, Mud. Yeah, it is a bit rare for Sky to be over there during stream. In the evenings, sometimes overnight, that's where he sleeps. But usually not in the midst of the day. So then after all of this, we do that's the normalized direction to player. Player equals adjustment player to player normalized. All right, let's see if this works. Now the blobs should be converging on us and should veer away from each other if they they're sliding backwards still, which is not what I want. I want them to steer away from each other. And they are sliding to the right, which they're not supposed to. Okay, let's look at what we did here. Don't need... It's the global... Hey there, Chow. I thought I had our logic here working, but we still have... Let's... immediately get one of these collisions. And let's see, collider position. A collider object. Okay. So there's our problem. There's our problem. Why are you chewing on my head, Sherbet? Ouch. We are coding our game here, Chow. We're trying to do some avoidance logic, and I see where we've got a problem. Ow, ow. That Sherbet is being a sweetheart and is grooming my head. But that means that he's trying to pull my scalp into position and chew at me a bit. Okay, I see what we're doing wrong. The collider object is the entire mob collider zone, which exists at 0, 0. So there's our problem. So we can only get collision point. This is where the collision happened. So instead of that, we can get our target position, which is our 2-player. Maybe we can just do 2-player. Okay, so we do... Well, that's just the direction 2-player. Okay, so we've rotated the vector. We've extended that vector out 96. We are pointing it at the player. So we know that 2-player times 96 is where we want to be aiming. And if it's colliding, we want to adjust it out based on that. So we're saying from the point of the collision, what is this line? So from our target position to that. There to the point of collision. Okay, let's try that. They are turning towards me, and some of them are coming towards me, but they're starting to line up, which isn't right. I don't know what the question is, Chow. I don't know what this blue thing is. So normally with this logic, what we would do is we would find the vector from the central position, which is what we're doing with 2-player here. And we would find the vector from that, from the center of the colliding object to that and apply it accordingly. But I can't do that because the... What's up? I had no plans to I have had no plans to look at that. That doesn't mean that there would never be plans to look at it. So to answer the prior question, I don't know if it would be when at all. But, maybe. Okay, so we know... What we could do is look at the rotation from it. So if we... we're doing some code on our game, Ashley. We are trying to get... would it be? We are trying to get collision avoidance. Okay. We should still be able to apply that. If we do a plus equals with the rotation 2. Okay, let's try that. But will that work? So now if I cast the line to the collision point, Actually, the song is a fixed playlist. There's about 35 different tracks on this. These are all songs that are copyright safe for me to have both in stream and on VODs and videos. There is a link to the playlist in the YouTube video descriptions. So if you look at that, if there's one of those on it that you'd like me to jump to, then I can do that. Okay, so we have our two player. This is where we want to go. So this is going to be our basis for rotation. Unless it's been put into public domain, Ashley, it is still copyright. Copyright is not something that you have to declare, and people can still do reaction content while still being at risk for copyright claims. The only reason I can play this is I have a license to do so. Reaction and critique content does not necessarily constitute fair use for the purposes of avoiding a copy strike, even assuming that the copyright holder does not decide to use those tools maliciously. This has been your arbitrary, lightweight legal discussion. I am not a lawyer, but I do encounter this kind of thing. Okay, so we rotate them to the player. Now we get, if we get a line from our current position to the point of collision. So to collision is position dot direction to. So that will get us our rotation towards the point of collision. We want to rotate further away from that, which should be minus equal. Well, thank you, Okami. Thank you very much. Okami joining us in the Nyanite membership tier. As well as also hello Okaneki. Well, lurking is just fine, Okami. Lurking is always okay. Okay, so now we have the angle to, we have access to collision as a float, because this is going to be in radians, is the angle from two player to collision. Well, welcome. For those new here and that haven't seen, you could see two of my cats on there. So let's see the rest of them. We have well, camera 1 where Ember was misbehaving, but Ember is there. Then we have Sherbet. He is the white and tan kind of blotchy one that is snoozing on another heating pad. Then we have Sky on the tan blanket and Sammy on the pillow. Not visible is Mason. He is also tan and white. But let's see. For as long as he's going to be there, Sherbet is being very photogenic, so. We are currently working on our game. The thing I'm working on is collision avoidance. I don't want the blobs bumping into each other. So I want them to veer away. And eventually converge on the player, but we'll see how well this works. Okay. It's equal to player. Do rotation. Can't do work, right? So then adjustment. All right, blobs, work with me. All right, so we need more adjustment force here. To see if there's a way for me to put the banner on this. In any event. Okay. So we're not seeing this function as I would like. So this is to the point of collision. And we don't want to accelerate our object here. So the angle 2 doesn't seem to be what I want. Okay, that one's causing them to steer in. So if we wanted to change the angle, it's that. Because we want them to rotate away. they're hard overlapping, which means the rotation isn't sufficient for this. So, welcome, welcome. Having some dental adventures, huh? Okay, so we've got 2 collision. So if I get adjustment plus equals collision times 96. This is extending the vector all the way out. Dot direction 2. To player. It's 96. Okay, so we should be constantly making the adjustment here. So then player equals adjustment, then we'll just use to player again. Hey there, Reaper. All right, they're being wildly accelerated by that. Normalized. Okay, no, they're all able to overlap here. That's not right. Hey there, welcome, welcome. That is one of my 5 cats. Got some additional faces in the chat, so let's do this again, since my algorithm has failed me. We can currently see 4 of them. There's one more that we can't spot. And the algorithm is also being much more expensive there. We want to be able to go to 400 or 500. So for those in the short form, left to right, top to bottom, we have Ember, then Sherbet, then Sky, and Sammy. Not visible is Mason. I suspect he's near Sky and Sammy, but off camera. We try to keep him on camera. Well, thanks, folks. They're all cuties. They're all very friendly cats. Well, they're very friendly to me. Okay, this doesn't work. So what do we do here? I'm working on this game. So here, you can see it very briefly failing to work. So these little blobs are supposed to avoid each other. They're supposed to veer off of each other. But instead, they're just sticking to me and whirling around. That's not what they're supposed to do. When those arrows go red, they're supposed to veer off so they stop bumping. But they don't. The algorithm that I'm basing this on relies on being able to find the center point of the object of collision, but that's not what we've got. So we have the point of collision. We can get collision point, but that's not what we want. We want so we can get the collision shape, and we can get the collider, which is an object, but the object encompasses the entire world. So that's not what we want. We don't want the object, and so the RID doesn't help us. The shape does help us, but that is a physics server thing. So can we... not yet. Gray. Is it an area get shape? Normal would give us a turn left or right. Normal would get us a turn left or right. And we would also want to slow down or not. You know, let's look at that. Let's look at that. That's a thought. So we don't want to get collider shape. We have the point of collision. Hey there, welcome. It varies, Destroyer. If on YouTube, do you have notifications turned on? If you don't have notifications turned on, it wouldn't do that. And sometimes they don't work, and sometimes they're automatically turned off. Don't know. Which is a completely seamless opportunity for me to say, if you are watching for the first time or you have not already, consider liking, subscribing, commenting, that kind of thing on my content. It will help the system supply you with more of it, and maybe I'll see you in future streams. Seamless plug. Okay, let's see. It's not the normal, it is... Where did we have that? Get collision normal. Okay. That kitty is Sherbet. He is one of the two sibling kitties. Mason and Sherbet are not quite brothers, their litters were kind of merged together, so they might be biological brothers, but they're at least kind of step brothers, as it were. None of them sitting on my lap currently. Normally, that would either be the Tuxedo, Sammy, or Ember, the Diluted. Okay, so we can get the collision normal. Give us a vector 2. Would that get us the adjustment that we need to make? Well, welcome back, and indeed, Cat. Yeah, the normal should do it, right? It won't work if they're directly overlapping, but if it's 0, then we can supply a negative force and tell it to slow down. That's not going to necessarily work. But I think it's a starting point. Let's see if we can get them to turn. Normal, say vector 2. Get collision normal. So that should get us. It's either going to be turn in or turn out, but let's. So adjustment already equals our 2-player, where we want to start. The direction 2. So we can just keep taking collision normal and applying that to the adjustment. And then we can take adjustment and add it to 2-player normalized. So in theory, it should keep punching it to the side. Now, once they start to get overlapped with each other, they're going to stay there. But we can see it starting to work. They will veer off a little bit. They kind of jitter, which is not what we want entirely. And because they're overlapped, we're getting a lot more than we would want. So we are getting a frame rate cost here. And we're also getting a bunch of errors happening. Let's stop the debugger. Let's... ...2D. We're going to turn off Rapier 2D. We're going to go back to default. Are we getting errors now? All right, we're not getting errors. That's good. Let's Let's look at our frame rate here. Still holding at 60. We're at 300 some blobs. If we can approach 1,000, that's where we want to be, without dropping through 60 FPS. Oh no, about 500 is our limit. We need to make this more efficient. I am aware of Genshin, but I don't know to what you are referring there. Okay. Okay. We could add an extra repulsive force to this. Okay, they're still managing to overlap, though. This is not the end state. We want to exceed, like, if we can hit 1,000 objects, we should have plenty. But yeah, I'm aware of Genshin, but not Genshin images. Hello there. Welcome, welcome. Oh, 500. Do I hear 6? Little hiccup, but oh, it's starting to drop. 58. It's wiggling. It's wiggling. 700. Okay. Okay. Little better. Little better. Okay. How about triple? Doing well. We're doing well. Okay. Repulsive force is further amplified. I might have to angle the vectors out a little bit. For those that weren't here in the last one, we have changed these so these aren't individual physics bodies. These are just collision zones. And they're designed to stay away from each other. Or that's the goal. Debugger, monitor. Sorry, I missed that. Apparently, someone has requested me say Andrew. Okay, at 700, we're still holding. This is with a triple repulsive force here. Okay, We are starting to suffer. Still at about 750. That's still pretty good, though. Further amplified repulsive force. Oh, I see. I see. Probably an autocorrect there. I am aware of Genshin Impact. I did play it in the past. I am the type of person that gotcha elements are things that it's the sort of thing I try to avoid. So, I have I have stopped going down that road. Okay, so what if we go into our mob body 2D and instead we rotate these guys. Okay, they're not catching each other from the side is a problem. So, and 5. 4. Be like that. 5. Be like this. Go forth, blobs. Okay, they can still overlap with each other. That's still a problem. Let's see how much more expensive this is, though, because we're monitoring a lot more shapes. What is your question? Can't say I do. Whenever I encounter a language I'm not familiar with, I always have to translate it, and since those are emoji, I cannot do that. All right, we're already plummeting at 600. That has reduced efficiency. But can we mitigate that further by increasing repulsive force? What do you mean there? How old is it? Do you mean how long have I been working on this? Or how old is the engine? Debugger, monitors. Do some really intense and exciting line watching. We're looking at this line. We're waiting to see when it starts to consistently drop. Some little wiggle going on. Happens at about 650. Okay, right about 650. That is our current cap. Well, one of the overlap problems that we have is that some of the collisions are happening within the object itself. So the way those bubbles work, that is all one entity. Where is it? Collision test is a single entity that all of those blobs are part of. We're using Godot 4 point something there, King. So it's, I think, less than a year at this point. The game we've been working on off and on in streams for over a month now. And it is starting to reach the pace where I am looking at like code off stream. So we're likely to get some acceleration here. So that's why we're getting some overlap, because a raycast normal will return 0 if the raycast originates inside the object, because the point of collision is at the start of the raycast then. So one thing we could do is apply a randomized vector there. What about Genshin Impact? I'd say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't complete my thought. It's gotcha elements in games are things that will start to kind of get their hooks into me. Like, the temptation to spend money is always there, and even if I don't, it is like a pervasive thing. It's like them constantly tapping me and saying, hey, it's irritating. So after a bit, I stop and just say, nope, I'm done with this. That is why I stopped playing Genshin. We did on stream for a little bit, though. As far as like visuals in the actual game mechanics, it's not bad at all. Okay. Go back into the code here. So what if we apply a semi-randomized backwards push? We don't even need it to be semi-randomized. We could just say collision normal is equal to vector 2, 0. Then collision normal equal to negative is equal to -1 times player. So what we're doing is we're telling it, if you collide from inside, go backwards a bit. Nope, they are not colliding from inside. That's weird. All right, let's check our vectors. They exclude parent because we want them to be able to collide with each other. Hit from inside, yes. That might be why. This might be why in general. Yeah, okay. Might be an oopsie there. All right, all right. So colliding from within is not right. What I'm guessing is that that is causing it to always report a 0. And if it reports a 0, then we don't get what we want. I had actually hoped to get past this point today. But looks like we not gonna. Hello, Sherbet. Yeah. Yes, yes. Your claw is stuck in my shirt. Sherbet is behind my head. The one possibility would be to move the shape outside. That's correct. But these raycasts are pretty much, this is what we have to use to be able to bump into these Area 2Ds. So the trick with that is, again, if you look at the parent object here, this is a shape. And the reason that it's a shape is that the parent object is out here. In the game world is an Area 2D. So this Area 2D is defined by all the shapes that are part of it, all those little entities with raycasts. If a Area 2D were to collide with it, the point of collision, like the body that collided or the area that collided, would be the entire area test. We can get the RID of the whole body. We can also get the shape, but it'll be as an index. And to do this collision properly, we would need to have collision test colliding with itself. And then each collision, we would have to go through all of the duplicate collisions and say, is this one colliding with the same index? If it is, ignore it. That is faster than default collision handling, but it is still very close to the logic, which is doing a universal body overlap check. So default Godot 2D physics handling says every time a physics body moves, do a global collision check. So it gets exponentially messy with more moving bodies. And as might be apparent based on the test, there's a lot of moving bodies. This is an optimization to allow me to get to that 650 entities without the game slowing to like no frames per second. So it has improved, but I want to get this overlap issue out of the way. But we're still in a weird place for that. And that's if the two objects overlap with each other. Like, they're inside of each other. That's the problem. Okay. But how about this? We go in to our code. We can't use this because that would require we be able to collide from within, and that would mean that those vectors which for some reason aren't excluding their parent object, this shape. No, let's look at that one more time here. They're going to hit from inside, right? Okay, let's do this again. I mean, that's a formula. What are you wanting me to do with that? Okay, so they collide from within. If instead we get a collision normal of 0, then how about we make the collision normal equal to the vector that the raycast is pointing to? So -1 times raycast dot target position. No, that won't quite work. That's not what we want. That's where it is. That's not the vector. In fact, this probably isn't the vector. No, that's the vector. That's the vector. Yeah. Because the target position should be relevant to the current space. So if this happens, it pushes the target position in the opposite direction. Still not what we want, but it is interesting behavior as they are overlapping with each other. Let's slow their spawning down substantially here. Let's do 1 a second here. These blue bubbles are hitboxes. Okay, they're always colliding. If they hit from within inside, they only collide with themselves. Feel free to just ask your question. If you ask for acknowledgement before asking your question, it just means that I have to do extra steps. So just go right ahead to the question. This is called GD script, King. This is the scripting language that is specific to the Godot engine. Godot engine also lets you use C#. In a kind of, you compile it elsewhere and then bring it inside. It's a little slower to accomplish it, and it's not as good at physics handling within Godot. Okay, let's try it with this. Okay, they're coming in. King Poop, that is what we are attempting to do. Those little red arrows are detecting when a collision is actually going to happen. And they're trying to push the object back. As far as bouncing, that would also be possible, but mechanically, the little guys are supposed to swarm you. Like, they're supposed to do this. Well, they're mostly supposed to do this. I kind of think this is actually fine, ultimately. Once all this stuff is working, and are you saying what time is it over here? Are you asking what time will we be done? What time we normally stream at? What time do you mean? Okay, let's I want to change something here. Project settings, display, not physics, rendering, I think, not textures, 2D. No, where's the Y order? Chow did. Chow asked about time. Hey there, Ghost. Action, shading, camera. Not camera. GUI. We could do avoidance pathfinding, but I feel like pathfinding is going to be even more expensive. This kind of thing. Could have swore there was a place where I could go in and tell it to use Y ordering for sprite rendering. That's what we want. We might set that aside for now. About the camera. So, King, that's what this script is doing. And I agree there. Every cat does need a channel. Like, that's what this is doing. So, these blue bubbles are hitboxes. And the red arrows, the arrows are them detecting that they're going to hit each other. Welcome back. And they prevent that. They push back away from that motion. I could shorten the arrows, and it would be as if the bubbles were pushing away from each other or not touching. But the arrows are currently to make it harder and harder for them to touch. But you can see that they slowly jiggle in on each other. But I think that will ultimately be okay. And they could be simplified by just having the side ones and then forward ones. Like, have the 45-degree ones, but also have 2 forward-facing ones. Because I really don't need them to push left and right, but, you know. You can see the little dude there popping out of the mass. Let me slow the blobs down. That'll probably help. Float is equal to 96.0. Hello, Sam. If you got a question or something, feel free to just ask it. And I'm not sure. I apologize if you didn't interpret that, but hello, welcome back. Overlap the speed here so that I can adjust it. Change that to 24, make them substantially slower. That's all over me at the moment. Yeah, you can see the player sprite in the middle there. Little bouncy robot guy. You work with the channel. What would that accomplish, King? We're not dealing with difficulty right now. We're dealing with raw physics mechanics. Difficulty and raw game mechanics will happen later. Yep. Godot and Unity, I mean, they aim for the same thing. Actually, this is okay. This is working. Yeah. Yeah. When we make them move slower, it's less of a problem. So if I actually use the real velocity of the sprite or of the entity, then we've got that set. Okay, let's speed up the spawn rate. How about twice a second or more? It's once a second, about 4 times a second. Player hitbox is the blue pill shape in the middle. It's a little off-center when you move left. I'll have to adjust that. And the blobs are very likely to use squares long-term. That better encompass their shape on the ground. Okay, we're definitely going to get some overlap if I do this, but let's go for... it's 10 times a second. Let's very quickly get them out there. 20 times a second. Go! Go to our debugger and our monitors, and we watch our frames per second. So they're overlapping very heavily right now. But they should start to collide right there. Okay. Okay, we're about to hit 600. That's the drop-off point usually. 650. 750. 8. Okay, 800. I think we're good enough to go with that. Okay. This is just testing spawn rate. This whole chunk right here, time since spawn, this is not where that goes. There's a reason they're called test mob and the like. Because we pretty much had to completely revise how we were doing physics handling. Yeah. If we hit 800, 500 is probably where the on-screen mob limit will already be exceeded. So here, let me show you. 0.1, and we're going to do not 10. Let's do 5 a second. Okay, this box here is where mobs aren't supposed to be. So we're using a slower spawn rate to get them colliding with each other properly. So you can see the little projectiles, the mice that are being fired out, go away when they hit that edge. Now, I might be able to contract this in further, but right now it doesn't work that way because these little blob bubbles, they are an entity, like they are a collective entity that is bigger than the screen. It encompasses the entire world. They are all one thing. And we do that because physics checking against one thing is way faster than physics checking against 300 things. Just check what our frame rate is right now. We are zoomed out 10 times further than we would be in game. This is not an indication of what it would actually be. These red lines are just to demarcate the junctions between screen blocks. Each one of these red dots is centered on a screen block. That is not... All of this is test graphics. Yeah, I think we can contract the kill zone in by half a screen or so. Because this is 500 creatures. This is more than we should ever need. Ouch, ouch, Sammy, ow. Like, look how many of them there are. No idea, King. We do a vast majority of our coding on stream, so we are operating slower. I don't think we're I don't think we're synced to 60. The game is operating at 60 as a cap. Okay, so zoomed way out, we start to lose frames at about 600. Which again, more than enough. We have so many that the entire screen surface is pretty much covered. You can see about to the red lines around the edge. So this is with the creatures moving at very slow. And yeah. I acknowledge you, Sammy. I do. Okay, we're doing 5 a second. 10 a second, and we will get some overlap. But let's put that there. Then we're going to go in. We've zoomed all the way in. I don't know how many lines of code I have. All right, Dreamer, thanks for swinging through. Okay, yeah. At about, given the speed that they move at, here, let's speed them up a little bit. Up. That'll speed them up a lot. What's my favorite song? Oh man, that changes over time quite a bit. One of my recent favorites, I can't recall the actual title, like what is definitely the title. But it was Chow, you're gonna have to explain that question. I do not know what you are actually asking. Favorite song, it's like Magical Girl Chocolate or something. Michi did a cover of it. It's originally a Vocaloid thing. Okay, so this is them moving at a slightly more reasonable speed. 48 is about half a square a second. For reference, a grid square is 96 space units. Debugger, monitor. Anime-wise, I haven't watched anime recently. There are some that I've been considering watching, but haven't gotten around to it. Okay, we have already plummeted at about 700. So this is with double overlaps because 10 per second is enough to cause it. Yeah, I think we've got enough. I think we can handle enough. Excellent. Excellent. What anime have to like? What anime do I like? What are some anime that I like? My all-time favorite, largely for nostalgia reasons, but because I still find it amusing, as it was the first series that I really got into, is a series that I think Funimation still owns. I don't know if they originally did, but they do. Called The Slayers. The anime is very comedic, high fantasy. The light novel that it is derived from is darker in content, but still with some real comedic elements. After that, I'm largely into manga and light novels for the most part. I've seen Death Note. The biggest thing I appreciate about Death Note is that it manages to turn things into overblown drama better than even Yu-Gi-Oh does. So if you're familiar, the Yu-Gi-Oh shows managed to turn drawing a single card into this dramatic, skill-infused action. Like, really overblown. It can take minutes to draw that card. Death Note goes better than that. Death Note manages to make eating a potato chip or writing a series of text lines be the most dramatic, action-fueled elements that you have seen. A potato chip eating scene being a single potato chip over the course of like a minute, and one scene in the later seasons of a character writing lines of text as if he is having a knife fight with the book. Let's see, what else? What time do I stream? On the days that I stream, which is every day except for Mondays and Thursdays. My new schedule has me starting at noon, doing one stream until 3, and then doing the coding streams starting at 4. US Central. I have not watched all of Naruto, King. My opinion is that Naruto is not good after the Zabuza arc. After that, it's all downhill from there. The writing becomes worse. Action-wise, flashy stuff happening-wise, I understand that it becomes cool. But writing-wise, I feel that it goes downhill. And it goes downhill in a way that is wildly disappointing to me. I feel like they spoiled the world, a cool world that they set up. Let's see. Another one I really like is that I've largely read the manga of, but the anime is actually very faithful to it for the most part, is One Punch Man. I really like that. Both visually, the gags are fun, the art is cool, but the concept of the main character and his sidekick, the cyborg, is a really cool mechanic. I like how they have written those two. The dynamic between them is amazing, because the cyborg is a very generic shonen protagonist, and Saitama is what would normally be a gag character, but their capabilities are swapped, and the realities of those two characters are just fun as they go through. It's anime talk time, apparently. I love the Overlord light novels. I hate the anime, and to a much lesser extent, the manga, but I like the light novel so much I don't read the manga. But I hate the anime so much. The anime does a great disservice to the content of the light novel. Hello, Daniel. One manga that I've been getting into is Mashal. Jobless. Sounds familiar. Do you mean Jobless Reincarnation or a different one? Oh, I'm not a fan of Jobless Reincarnation. It's not terrible. It was good when I started reading it. The sleazy elements were, they drove me off. I suspect those are less than the anime. Maybe I'll have to poke it. But there are a lot of... There are elements to shonen and more male-oriented later manga that I have little tolerance for. Do you mean the live-action one, King? Okay. Okay, so code-wise, what we are doing next is we need to completely restructure this mess that I've created. Oh, boy. Okay, so the core mob body needs to be completely redone. The core spawner needs to be completely redone. And I agree, the live-action adaptations of Death Note and also Full Metal Alchemist were bad. Like, I appreciate that they tried. I appreciate that they saw Disney going through and remaking all this stuff in live action, and we're like, we can do that too. I hope they've learned their lesson. I feel like the Cowboy Bebop one wasn't so bad, but I think that one more ran afoul of it was different and thus the fans hate it. um Along the same veins that the Final Fantasy remakes, I'm trying to trigger TAS here. Uh the Final Fantasy remakes I think were really good games, but the some of the people that profess to be Final Fantasy VII fans have views and are very vocal about it. And I think, personally, I feel like that might have been a contributing factor to Netflix tanking that series quick. But I don't know. There may have been other factors. I know Netflix is very fast sometimes to experiment and then backpedal hard without giving a series necessarily time to breathe a little bit more. Oh, Vampire Hunter D, yes. I remember watching Saturday Anime quite a bit. And Vampire Hunter D was one of those really kind of classic-y ones. I haven't read any of the manga. From the era, Battle Angel is one of the that anime is one of the reasons that I think the live action one was terrible. Though having since read the manga that those are derived from, it doesn't really change my opinion of the anime movie. It doesn't really change my opinion of. I'm sorry, no. It doesn't change my opinion of the live action because I feel like the live action was sloppy and rushed. I still think that the movie was the anime movie was good. But I will say the manga goes off the rails. Like it goes on for way longer than it should. Do you mean Jujutsu Kaisen, Daniel? Okay, we need to Jujika. I'm not familiar with that at all. Is that Jujika with two U's? That's the only thing that came up with in a search. Hey, if somebody gives you an honorific, just roll with it. It's better than comma child. Or kiddo. Pumpkin Knight. No, the only pumpkin anime I can remember is Pumpkin Scissors, which wasn't bad at all. Or I should say, pumpkin related Japanese media. Okay, so we need to revamp this. Test mob needs to become our new mob body. And in updating that, we are going to have to look at revising our movement logic. Not too much, though. Happily, our movement logic doesn't need to change too much. I dislike solo leveling. The anime starts out flashy enough, but it has the problem that a lot of incremental fantasy or lit RPG, depending on who's creating the genre. Here, we'll put this on in the background since I'm yammering on. But it has the same problem that a lot of lit RPG does, and that's that very quickly the lit RPG part ceases to matter, even though they keep referencing it. See reincarnated as a spider. There is a point at which the whole I am, leveling up and gaining powers ceases to really mean anything, even though they keep talking about it. Hard disagree, King, but to each their own. Let's see. If the raw story doesn't interest me, then I generally won't like the anime. I have read up through the 8th light novel. And by that point, I am done. They have gone so far off. Okay, we're losing frames at this point, but like we mentioned, we don't need to go this far. If the screen were to reach this point, you would have lost already. We would have lost way before this. Like with Vampire Survivors, which is the sort of game that we're working towards, Death Must Die, Vampire Survivors, anything named Survivors. If a creature is touching you for this long, you're done. But yeah, this is 1,000 things on the screen, and our I mean, the arrows aren't going to be something that you can normally see here. Let's turn that off. Debug visible collision shapes. This might actually make it a little less expensive as far as frame loss. But you can get a better view of what the sprites look like at the moment. They're overlapping because the rate at which the spawn point overlap moves is slower than the rate at which they're spawning. I could fix that. Not gonna yet. Now we should start to see an inward pressure kind of jiggle them in closer and closer. Because their logic is just draw a straight line to the player, move towards the player. Frames are holding pretty well. If if we remove checks on like the visual of the physics, we're actually getting some better numbers. 750. Okay, yeah, it's still about. Alex? Isn't that open world survival that you referenced before? If so, I currently do not own that game, and so I do not have plans. It's generally not the sort of game that I put a lot of time into. That does not mean it will never be played. For some quick science. Move over to the right here. Okay. I just wanted to check. I don't need global position there because I don't have any altered space that we're dealing with. Okay. It's here. Not that. Screen. Okay, we're going to take a real quick break. I will be right back, and then we will continue. All right, settling back in here. Okay. Got to get up and move around a little bit. A nice quote unquote healthy amount of streaming today. Okay, creature tracking. What do we do? What do we do? All right. So here's the difficulty. Again, each blob is just a collision zone inside of an area 2D. This is a collision shape. That's it. There's an animated sprite that sits at the same spot on the screen, and then there's a collection of raycasts that come out from them based on their velocity, so that they sort of shove things out of the way. So all of this part right here is part of the independent entity. But as far as the world is concerned, as far as world physics are concerned, this is a relevant piece. This is what needs to go away if the creature is defeated or if it goes out of bounds. So, sip the beverage. Need to make sure I'm consuming liquid a little faster here. Well, because I haven't enough today, and additionally because I've been talking for about 6.5 hours straight, making the throat a bit ragged. Okay, so the difficulty with that is that once this shape is part of a collision zone, its behavior is fundamentally different. For example, with a raycast, I'm typing more slowly because Sammy is making biscuits on my leg. And that's twofold. I want to pay enough attention to her because she's a little sweetheart, and that she has come to sit with me. But I also need to be cognizant of if her claws dig in. Because I have not yet managed to get Sammy's claws trimmed enough that they don't go full murder mitt. Okay, so if we do raycast.get, so if we do get collider, what it's going to do is get that area 2D that is the kind of super entity that encompasses their collision zones. That's not what we want. We can get the collider shape, but if we look that up, that returns an int. That's not what we want. We want a actual collider shape. Like, we want the shape so that we can reference it. Anime can be good. Anime can be good. There's a lot of TV series and whatnot that I just haven't gotten around to watching because it's a matter of rationed free time. Like, I've got a lot of leisure activities that I could be doing, but not infinite time to do it. I've only ever seen a small portion of the first episode of Demon Slayer. I have seen a lot of memes and clips of Demon Slayer, but that's about it. So I cannot say whether I would like it or not. It falls into that bucket of it's too far down the list. It is in the entertainment compost pile. It's kind of like when you're solving software bugs. There are minor ones that are so minor that you're even trying to spend the time to get to them imposes penalties on the actual like significant work you need to be doing. So it goes at the bottom of the pile. It's there so that you know that it's a known issue, but you're never going to fix it. So it stays at the bottom of the pile forever, even if it stops being like accurate. Okay. So if we get the shape ID, because we can get the collision area that happens. We can get the area, we can get the shape ID. And if we get the shape ID, we should be able to invoke the physics server. Physics server, a physics server, physics server. I can type. Dot. So we can add shapes. In the background, whenever you're creating things like kinematic body, 2D, character body, those kind of things, in the background, you're talking to the physics server. It's handling all this song and dance for you. The way we're working with collision, we're going to be talking to the physics server. Not to interact with this. We'll know what test mob is, so we can remove test mob from existence. What we need is to be able to get a shape from the area or similar. So we go in, we look up symbol. Okay, so the RID of the area, which if it's a collision with a mob, we know it's the mob area, and then the index of it. That will give us the RID of the shape. So then the question is, can we take that and get the corresponding object? Tricky. But that's what we'll need to do. I would get out my notepad and start scribbling, and I think that's what we're going to have to ultimately do. Because I'm reaching a point where you always need a design document. It doesn't have to be, we're not talking like a formal like binder that you consult as holy writ. Yeah, King, you want to be... Please be aware that some of the terminology you use is still considered by the majority of the population, or a substantial part. It could be viewed as hate speech. You are using a word for a particular orientation as a pejorative. Don't do that. Yeah. Okay, Sammy has vacated. Come to me, notepad. Let's see. Scary video games can be fun, but it depends on how the scary is done. Blocking camera with notepad. Like, jump scares to me are not scary games necessarily. They're fun for the adrenaline hit, like the building of anxiety and anticipation, and then the The oh no, it's right there. I did not expect it. I have played FNAF, don't like it. FNAF feels too much like cabinet stealth to me. I don't like, games where the core mechanic is close the door, hide in the closet, jump under the bed, that kind of mechanic. I do not find those fun. I like games that have sinister atmospheres. You can put jump scares in them, but I like that when it's an adrenaline hit kind of thing. Like, it jumps out at you, and the core mechanic is you are meant to be startled, not you are meant to fear. My favorite mobile game, setting aside remakes of some classic things that I have played on mobile, setting those aside, there is a nonogram puzzle game that I play. Just a moment, let me see its name here. It's called Nonogram Life. I like that. It's fun. I like that kind of puzzle. Okay, so let's see here. That's right, Blood Mage. Generally, if I look at a quote-unquote horror game and I see the tag survival horror, I just continue walking. That's not the kind of horror game I want. Like, it's visually horror, but not a horrifying experience. Okay, so let's see. The spawner now needs a corresponding... There's a mob template still. Minesweeper? I'm going to guess there's a cat here. Is there a cat here? Because I remember playing Minesweeper way back in the day, early Windows. All right, let's find a cat. As cheesy looking as they are sometimes, and as sort of like lightweight experiences, the Chilla's art games can be good. They range from surreal to disturbing settings and concepts to moments of like, what was that thing kind of moments. To me, some of the best horror creatures are the kind that as you're walking in the distance, like through the trees, you can see something. It doesn't jump out at you, but it is something that passes in the distance. So like, if it's a dark environment in the forest, the monster doesn't jump out at you, but you can see shapes moving around when you turn around behind you, or there might be briefly eyes watching you from the shadows. If you go to investigate, you might hear the sound of something leaving. You build that anticipation, build it and build it and build it, so that if there is a jump scare, if there is a moment where you can see it more clearly, that the payoff is greater. You only get so many you only get so many chances at it, and you can only do that so many times before it desensitizes the player. So you got to mix it up. But that's the kind of experience I want. I want that, like you're describing, that feeling of like, it feels like it's watching you after that. You know, it gets into the back of your head. That's hard to get. That's hard to get. That raw jump scare is easier if it's a pure jump scare game, like observation duty. I like for that feeling, but it does wear off. Since you know when the things can appear and what they look like, it stops being a jump scare and more of like, oh, it's the guy, you know, it's the guy that's upside down on the ceiling. There he is. Hi, guy. But the first few times suddenly that there is a guy staring at the camera or something like that, it hits. You know, it gives you that little, that surge of adrenaline, that push. It's neat, but it wears off. Okay, so spawners need a mob template. They need a frequency. Maybe a lifespan? So we know a spawner needs a thing to spawn. Spawners range from what is producing these creatures, the concept of producing those creatures with a frequency, to what's emitting the weapons, like comment. Stop. Save. Run. So if you watch the little mouse thing, those are being emitted by a spawner that is stuck to the player. It just follows the player along in every second or so. Well, it's supposed to follow the player. Clearly, I broke that. Actually, no, I'm certain that I did break that. I know where I broke that. But it emits these things with a frequency, and those things are defined in a resource elsewhere, like stacks up. But one possibility with monster spawners is that they have a lifespan or a count kind of thing. Such that after it emits X units, after it has gone for so long that it stops emitting and like self-destructs. That would be a useful concept. Okay, then we still need the spawner factory to generate them from a configuration. Where we give it a template and it gives us a spawner. That's large. So spawners and factories are largely a modification. This is a good opportunity for us to move global nodes concepts out. So if we look at global nodes, this is one of our globals. We have a lot of things in here that shouldn't be here. These enums should be in these enums, this dictionary, these values. These should be in a kind of a constants file. These are good global nodes. So this is the player. These will be changed over to these areas most likely. Monster pool. Don't really need the bullet pool anymore. The player's bullets. These are things that can represent these are things that it's useful for everything to know where it is at all times. So it's useful for code to be able to say, okay, where are all the monsters? So say I need to wipe all monsters off the screen. I don't want to have to pass this everywhere. Having one place in code where it says, I am going to define what the monster pool is, I think is fine. If I wanted to test like a different monster pool, I can change that where it sets monster pool, where it initially creates it. So while I'm not going to build a unit testing framework, we will have some of the problems of, or some of the concepts of the programming pattern that I can never remember the name of, where you define like server entities and whatnot and like more constant objects. So move those out of there. So let's see. It will have the player, it will have the collision areas. Then we can also have kind of a mob handler. I mean, the mob handler could just have all of that set up. Yeah. So at the start of the game, the collision areas are fed into global nodes or directly into the mob handler. The mob handler will act as global nodes currently does with things like mob count, mob, add mob, get mob, add mob, remove mob. All of this stuff will be the wrapper for handling mob tracking. So let's create that. Where are the auto loads? You're still there, Tess. What would be the proper pattern name for this? Am I proposing a factory that generates the mobs? Or am I proposing more of a handler that says, I create and track them and deal with them? Because factory really, to me, implies that it's just a object that generates them. Like, I give it some specs and it spits out of something of that type. So I feel like handler is more of the thing, but maybe there's another common name for it. Anybody know? Blood Mage, you seem to have some knowledge on the topic. Yeah, and I think service model is the coding pattern we were talking about. So yeah, okay, we'll do mob service. We'll run with that. We'll run with that. We don't want to open it. We're going to say physics server. We'll call it mob server. And we will put it in globals. Okay. For reference, these are auto loads. These are things that, these are entities that are at kind of the root level, so everything can access them. So global objects, essentially. Welcome back, Tanuki. Well, it's easy to change at this point. Blood Mage is correct. Can I rename it here? Apparently no. Yeah, factory we would invoke to spit it out. The question, though, is would we also invoke a factory by saying, here is this thing that you spat out. Now get rid of it properly. Like, would a factory object actually track all of the things that it made? If we're talking about lore of this channel, yes, but coding pattern-wise... Hey, Sci-Fi. And why would you not go to Atlanta? It'll probably give out, like, so... If we do this right, then when a collision happens, we should be able to take the resultant reference that we get, like an ID, an RID, those kind of things. We should be able to pass it to whatever thing we're dealing with. And then it should give us a reference to the core entity. So if we get a collision, we should be able to pass it to this thing, whatever we call it, and that thing will then say, okay, based on that, you're talking about this mob body, this actual instantiation of a creature or a thing that's moving around on screen, mobile object. Ye olde way to refer to them. And then we can interact with it accordingly. If we want to get rid of it properly, we could pass the reference, or we could pass the mob body. It will translate that accordingly, and it will then interact with the physics server again to make sure that this shape is removed. Now, in theory, I should just be able to do a queue unload on it. Test time. I had a thought. Shocking, I know, but say float is equal to 0.0. Self is a keyword. Let's see. They live for 10 seconds. For reference, delta is a float representing how much time in seconds has passed since the last time this process was called. Well, sorta. When process is called, delta does not equal the time since the last time it was called. Delta is equal to the time between the last two times it was called. So when delta is called the second time, well, for the first time, it won't know what delta is. It'll probably be 0. Because we don't know how much time has passed when we're processing it. Like, we're doing the processing right now. Or something along those lines. Effectively, delta is not the time up till now. It is the last time up till now. There was a write-up of it, and now it completely escapes me. But it's slightly different than you think it is. Upon encountering it. Greater than 10 to 3. Okay, and then in game we are... I do not play Call of Duty in any fashion. Not my kind of game. Come forth, blobs. Okay, so now in the background, we go into debugger, we go into monitor, we go to objects. I don't mind shooting games. I really like Helldivers. Before it really started to lean into FOMO, I liked Warframe. I am concerned that this number keeps going up. That should not be. Because this implies a memory leak. It depends on what kind of strategy game. There are some RTS that I like, but I'm bad at. Things like Supreme Commander. I do not like traditional RTS, like your games like Command and Conquer and that kind of thing, StarCraft. Hero Wars is not a strategy game. Hero Wars is not an RPG. Hero Wars is a gacha game. It is a primal gacha game. And I greatly dislike a pure gacha game. I played it way back in the day. Back before its advertisements became grotesque. Even if they have greatly changed the core way it plays, I would not play it because of the way they advertise it. It is disgusting how they advertise it. Okay, I don't like that. I don't like that this number keeps going up. It should not. Because we are removing things. If we're removing things, this number should be going down, which implies to me that something is not right. So, let's check visible collision shapes. Science? So one of the questions is, do things linger? Okay, things are not lingering. That's good. We have... drawn. Yeah, I've played chess. So, collision pairs is the number that will wreck you if you try to use the standard physics calculation for what I'm doing right now. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, that's normal. Bullet pool. That's going away. Yep. Spawner path, there's just the one. Have a good... Or if we have a child count on this. Okay, we're going to put it here. If this keeps climbing, if this keeps driving back up, we have a problem. Okay, no, it is properly eating them. Well, in theory, it's properly eating. Okay, let's sit for a moment. So let's go up a little bit. A little bit more. What else could we have? Is there an orphaned object concept? What? Orphan nodes. I am petting the cat that you cannot see. That cat is across the room, and she be snoozing. There is a... So what's happening, I think, is that... Stop that. Let me see here. I'm telling this to go away. I think all of this is lingering. Okay, so... Let's look up... Well, no, all of them should be deleted. Using remove node anywhere? I thought I was only using Q3. Okay, let's limit our testing here. We're only spawning blobs. Blobs go away every 10 seconds. Okay, there's a problem with the bullet spawner. With the spawners in general. Well, that's good. Q3 does what it's supposed to. Hooray! Oh, I think I might know. There are objects inside that are not scene nodes. If they're not a scene node, we might actually have to free them directly. So I think you're right, Tess. Garbage collection. Oh, man. Yes, I acknowledge you, Sky. I do. Okay, well, we had a lot of good chatting today. And we made a lot of progress. We have a collision avoidance logic that I think is pretty solid. We might be able to... We might be able to clean that up further once we have more shape knowledge of the mobs, but I might just leave that as is and just use the collision shapes when we're defining the mob body as they are, with the idea that they're always facing right by default. Get all of that stuff working. Then, thank you. We know that our existing spawner logic has a memory leak. If I had to guess, something like the movement objects or similar, something in that category is being orphaned when we're creating it. They're not becoming a proper part of the tree, and if they're not a node, then they're not being freed properly. Any of those are not good. If they're becoming orphan nodes, then they're not going to be queued to be freed. And I think our movement template objects are probably it. We'll see. But that's probably going to be our next thing. Maybe we'll get to that. We'll get that resolved tomorrow. But also be looking up some code patterns. If I don't get the name right for the code pattern, it will drive me right up the wall. So I'll look that up. And we can start our latest refactoring push. I think this will be the second, flip the table refactor that we've had to do. But such is game development. Such is coding in general. And yeah. Having problems that we know that we can solve is the right kind of problem. That's the problem that you want. Is like a known quantity. This is something we can hunt for, we can clean up. As opposed to some of the things that we've been working with, those classic, but why does it do that kind of problems. All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. If you haven't already and you like what you saw, remember to like, follow, subscribe, comment, all those good buttons down at the bottom. Consider pressing them so that you get notifications of future content like my streams. But whether you decide to do that or not, thank you again for joining us. I hope the rest of your day is nice, and I will see you next time.